Hello Game Boys and Game Girls, I'm the Game Boy Guru, and welcome to another pickups video. I haven't done one of these in a while for a number of reasons. First of all, I've been very busy with work and haven't had a lot of time to get out and do searching. Second, my wife and I have been busy with a number of life events. And third, I'm cutting back slightly on some of my hunting because things have been tight budget-wise, so I haven't had nearly as much money to spend. But over the last few weeks since I did a video, I have received a couple things in the mail, and I did do just a teensy bit of hunting, so I wanted to cover that stuff. I actually have a lot to go through because one of the packages I got had a ton of stuff, but I'm going to go through that one pretty quickly because a lot of it is, well, I'll show you here in just a minute. So I've got a guy, a friend of mine named Zag, who is on the hunt for me. He's always looking for PSP stuff, and he occasionally sends me pictures of other stuff that he finds out in the wild, stuff that generally he already has, but he wants to know if I'm looking for it. And so he picked up a number of things for me and sent me a care package, and I'll go through that stuff very quickly. He sent me a ton of UMD movies that he picked up for next to nothing, and so I'll just go through a bunch of these really quickly. So we have First Sunday, Four Brothers, Happy Gilmore, classic. Hitch, haven't seen that one yet. 21, Kevin Spacey's always good. 8 Mile. Jarhead, I've heard mixed things about that. Kiss of the Dragon, another classic. Transporter 2, I haven't seen any of those yet, so we'll see what that's like. This one's pretty cool. Stuart Little 1 and 2. I've never seen this before, but it actually has both UMDs right there in the case, and that's pretty cool. So it's kind of fun. Dodgeball, classic. Already have that on DVD, but why not? Domino, which I've not seen. Keira Knightley, different look for her. Born Identity. And Die Hard 2, Die Harder. Underworld Evolution, which I already have on DVD. My wife and I have all but the most recent one on DVD. We like that series. Vantage Point. Walk Hard, which is sort of, I guess, a parody, if you will, of the Johnny Cash movie. Doom, which is probably terrible, but, you know. Boogeyman. Napoleon Dynamite, awesome. National Treasure, which my boss tells me I have to see because it's a good movie. The Punisher with John Travolta. And Ronin. So that's all the UMD movies that he sent me. Quite a lot. I'm going to have to figure out where to store all of these. So for the moment, I'm just going to set them aside while we look at the rest of the stuff that he sent me. He did send me a handful of PSP games. One of the things he sent me was this empty case for MLB 11 The Show. And the actual insert is in rough shape, but I think when we were texting back and forth, he said he thought he had the game and the manual possibly that he had pulled out because he was taking pictures of them to submit to rfgeneration.com for their database. Plug for that site. I write for that site on a monthly basis, and great place to catalog your games. And so that's just a blank empty case for now. He sent me a copy of 300. It's 300 March to Glory. This is the greatest hits, and it was still sealed, so he picked that up for a song. World Championship Poker 2 featuring Howard Lederer? I'm not sure. I have no idea. I don't know who this is, and I don't know anything about poker. So that should be interesting to play with. MLB 06, The Show. And the rest of these are all complete with manual and UMD. MLB '07, the show. So I think now this makes 4 or 5 baseball games I have for the PSP, and I think I've got 1 or 2 more of the MLB the Show titles. I kind of played around with one not too long ago that I bought, and it seems pretty good. So yeah, I'm not a sports fan like I was when I was a kid. You know, I kind of lost interest in baseball after the strike that they did in the early to mid '90s. In my opinion, it's like, well, you guys are making way more money in the length of your 10, 15, 20-year career than my whole family's going to see in our lifetime, and you're complaining about it? But the actual game of baseball is still fun, so why not? He also found The Hustle, Detroit Streets, one of either 2 or 3 pool games on the PSP. I think there's just sort of a standard, like, subpar or, basic pool game. This one, has got some sort of stylized graphics with people and sort of that. And then, of course, there's the, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like an adult pool game that has, scantily clad ladies in it and whatnot. And so I'll eventually pick that up to complete the collection, but I'm not looking forward to it. But yeah, we'll see if this is fun or not. And then Legend of the Dragon. I've almost picked this one up a couple of times. It's also on Wii and PS2, but every time I see a copy at the pawn shop, it's always missing the manual, or the disc is in really bad shape, and it's generally beat up. So, because I think this is more of a kid's game. It's rated T for teen, but the animation and art style in here seems like it would be something that is kind of geared more toward kids. So my guess is parents bought it for kids and they beat it up. He also picked up a couple of other things. I finally have a copy of Final Fantasy X. I know there are remastered versions of X and X2 out on PS3, I think, or possibly PS4 and Vita. But play the original. Why not? And then this is interesting. Ultimate codes for use with Symphony or Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy X. And it's interesting if you look at the deal right there above it, the Ultimate Codes, it says, "This is not a game." So, but if you look on the back, it's really cheesy artwork. I mean, it's bad. But it's just a CD in here, and in the little paper slip to kind of show you how to use it. So it seems like you put it in the console and you boot it up, and then put the actual game in there, and then you have access to these codes. So kind of an interesting concept. He also got me Samba de Amigo, which is cool. I have a Dreamcast, but if I ever grab Samba de Amigo for the Dreamcast, I will try and find a complete boxed copy. I know that's probably going to be expensive. So in the meantime, since you can use the Wii Mote and the Nunchuck, and I have both a Wii and a Wii U, this should be fun. Something that I might like to pop this in and play it with my wife. Sounds like fun. And to round out the package, he picked up some GBA games and a couple of other odds and ends here. There is a Cartoon Network Collection Game Boy Video cart. This is the first of the Game Boy Video carts that I have. I'm not sure what's on here because I haven't popped it in yet, but I've seen a couple of those before. They're relatively low quality, very grainy video, scratchy audio, not great, but interesting, and kind of a curio from that time. Strawberry Shortcake Summertime Adventure, and of course he's picking all these up for next to nothing, and so I can't complain about the games because they're dirt cheap. This is Nicktoons. It's a double game, Freeze Frame Frenzy and SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. And this is Like I said, it's 2 games on 1 card. I believe both of these came out as separate releases at one point prior to that. There is Crazy Racers, which I was glad to get. If memory serves, this is a bit of a cult classic for Game Boy fans. You know, of course, Mario Kart. What is it? Mario Kart Advanced Circuit or whatever it's called is relatively highly praised, and and then of course F-Zero. And so Crazy Racers, I think, is often spoken about in the same sort of esteem as those other titles. There's Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, or Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, excuse me. Apparently this is decent. I've seen on a couple of other YouTube channels that people have said they're pretty well-made games. We have Wario Land 4, glad to get that. And speaking of F-Zero, Maximum Velocity. So glad to have that too. Now I've got the original F-Zero on Super NES, F-Zero GX for the GameCube. I'll have to double check and see. I don't think I've got F-Zero on the 64, but now I've got this as well. And one of the cool things that he got me was the PSP camera. Glad to finally have that. I know someone who has actually used this in the past and joined their PSP to a wireless network and actually used Skype on the PSP. So that could be fun to play with. Not really for practical use, but you know, just to kind of mess with and see whatever. But I do have a couple of the camera games like Invisimals and stuff like that, so now I can finally actually use those. He sent me a couple of manuals as well. One for Disney's Hercules. I have the cart of that, so that's nice to have the manual to go with. And I don't have this cart yet, but I'm sure I'll run across it one day. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, of course, based on the Tim Burton movie starring Johnny Depp, which is good for what it is in its own right, but infinitely inferior to the original 70s film starring Gene Wilder. That's my personal opinion. Don't hate. And finally, from Zag, I got this Xbox 360 remote. I'm in the bedroom, 360's hooked up to the TV behind me, and so my wife and I use it in here sometimes for Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, etc. And this will be fun. I usually have the 360 pad that I have sitting on the nightstand, and so I can leave this on my wife's nightstand for her to use if she wants to mess around with it and watch something in here when she wants to. So that's everything that I got from my buddy Zag. Next, I want to look at a few things that I got from another buddy, this is all stuff from Single Banana, or at Single Banana on Twitter. He's also part of that rfgeneration.com website. He's a staff member there and a writer. Cool guy. Check him out. Follow him on Twitter. And very nice guy. So he had a friend, I guess, who was liquidating some stuff, getting rid of some items, and he knows Banana knows that I'm collecting a full set of Game Boy games, and so he hooked me up with a few. So we've got the F-14 Dogfight Simulator Turn and Burn. Finally got a copy of Fist of the North Star. I didn't request this one, but he threw it in. I'm not sure why, but Wave Race, and I already have this one. But if memory serves, this is a little bit cleaner label than the copy that I have. So what I may do is compare the two, and if this one's cleaner like I think it is, I'll probably put the other one in my trade pile. Hook by Sony ImageSoft. Mixed reviews on that one. Some say it's okay, some say it's terrible. That seems to be the consensus with Sony ImageSoft stuff in general. The Rugrats movie. I was never a Rugrats fan. I was not a 90s kid. I was an 80s kid. So the Rugrats, to me, didn't make a lot of sense and was kind of after my time. But it is Super Game Boy compatible. So we'll check that out. And then Spot, the video game. This is different than the Cool Spot game, which came out on the Genesis and Super NES and did receive a port on the Game Boy. So I'm interested to play that to see how it compares. But this is the earlier title that I think might just be a puzzle game, sort of like an Othello clone, if you will. So we'll see on that. I got a Game Boy Color game, and this is my first Harvest Moon game that I'm purchasing for me. I've purchased several Harvest Moon games in the past because my wife got really addicted to the series. So we own all 3 GameCube games, at least 1 title on the Wii, 2 DS games, and a 3DS game, the Wonderful Life title on PS2, and that might be it. But yeah, she got really addicted to Harvest Moon. And so this is my first Harvest Moon game that I'm actually purchasing for me. I never understood the draw of the series, but in my attempts to collect Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games, I'm going to get them eventually. So this is Harvest Moon GBC 3. It is the 3rd one. If memory serves, Harvest Moon GBC is just a color update of the first one, which was of the first Game Boy game, which was sort of the Game Boy downsizing equivalent of the Super NES original. But then GBC 2 and 3 are more original stories, from what I understand. And then he got me a couple of Game Boy Advance games as well. We have the Sega Smash Pack, so looking forward to that. I don't remember 100% what games are on this, but I think it's all Sega Genesis games, if memory serves. So love the Sega Genesis. That should be fun. Got Super Monkey Ball Jr. I haven't played the Monkey Ball games. I have Super Monkey Ball either 1 or 2 on the GameCube that I picked up at a pawn shop a while back, and haven't played it yet because, of course, my backlog is huge. But by all accounts, these are really fun games, so that should be fun. And then Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. Finally have a Kirby game on the GBA. Love Kirby games, so that should be fun. Now, I'd like to move on to a couple things that I picked up a few weeks ago, just kind of randomly. It's been slimmer pickings at pawn shops the last few times I've been in there at pawn shops and Goodwill. Just hasn't been a lot to get. So I'll show you. This was nice to find, though. I got this at the pawn shop. It's Lego Star Wars 3. So now I've got all but the newest Lego Star Wars games, at least one iteration. And I've got them on different platforms. So I have one of them on PS2, one of them on the original Xbox, and now one of them on the Wii. So that's fun. I also found Xbox 360, Tom Clancy's End War, and it looks like this is a strategy game, and so that could be fun. We'll check that out. And then I found Indiana Jones, the original adventure for the DS. They had a stack of DS games at the Goodwill, one of the 2 Goodwill locations I frequent, and I went and checked it out. They had it in the glass case, and this was the only DS game they had that even remotely interested me. So I asked them if I could check it out. Had a $2 price tag on the deal, and I opened it up to make sure the game was there, and it wasn't. Game's missing. So I asked the lady at the counter, "Can I give you $1 for it, and then I can probably find the game somewhere else? You know, GameStop might still have a copy, or I'm sure I could find just the chip elsewhere." She went back into the back and asked her manager, and the manager said, "Sure." So I got case, manual, and the little Nintendo DS health and safety precautions booklet for $1. Now on to the stuff that I've had in the last couple of days. A shout out to another Twitter personality, at Colonel Falcon. He ran a contest and said that he was going to give away a game, and all you had to do was, I think, like or heart, on Twitter, the post, and for those that did, he would enter them into the contest. Pardon me, that's my dog barking. I'm going to shut the door. Okay, sorry about that. So anyway, I liked the tweet, and that officially entered me into the contest, and I ended up winning. So what I got was a complete in box, still sealed copy of VIP for the Game Boy Color, based on the short-lived, widely panned TV series starring Pamela Anderson. Looks like an action game based on the screenshots. I don't know if you'll be able to tell here, but yeah, you're supposed to protect the Hollywood elite across 6 stages. 6 different levels of non-stop action, including rollerblading, boat chases, and helicopter adventures. So, just like the TV show, I'm sure this game is going to be utterly terrible. But because it's still sealed and complete in box, I might do an unboxing video of it just for the fun of doing that. But glad to get this. Go follow him at Colonel Falcon on Twitter. Cool guy. Always posts interesting pictures and information about obscure game consoles and screenshots of games and stuff, just kind of helping people reminisce and stirring up the nostalgia juices, so to speak. And then my finds yesterday, I actually got a little bit of time to do a bit of game hunting yesterday. And so I picked up a couple more PSP games. I got Virtua Tennis World Tour and Star Wars The Force Unleashed. Now, I'll say that this is a game I'm looking forward to playing. I have the Wii version as well. So now I've got the Wii version and the PSP version, which, as far as I have been told or have read, that those are actually the weakest 2 versions, that it's probably better to play for first time on PS3 or Xbox 360. But I think I might play through it on the PSP first, only because then when I go back, the story is supposed to be really good, and I'm a big Star Wars fan, so I'll enjoy it for that aspect. So I'll play it for the story and the basic gameplay stuff on here, and then when I find a PS3 and or Xbox 360 copy of the game, I'll go back and play it again, already knowing the story, so I can enjoy that, but then get that wow factor from the better graphics and the full presentation. So that's those. One of the pawn shops that I frequent sometimes actually came through yesterday and had a few items, a couple of which I've been looking for a while. So nice to find those. So I got James Cameron's Dark Angel, the PS2 game based on the short-lived TV series starring Jessica Alba and now quite famous Michael Weatherly. Big fan of the TV show. It hasn't held up as well as the other 2 major notable sort of heroine-based, not the drug, but, women who are heroes, heroines, heroine-based TV shows that came out of the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, such as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, favorite TV show of all time, and Alias, also one of my favorites. But it's still fun for what it is, and my wife and I have both seasons on DVD. I've watched it, and it's one of those that I enjoy pulling out every so often. So anyway, the game is supposedly not very good, but because their voices are both in the game, from what I understand. Yeah, voiceovers by Jessica Alba and Michael Weatherly. So that should be fun. Kind of like the Alias game. It's not great, but it has story elements and it ties into the series. So that should be fun to mess with. And to complement what Zag sent me, I found Final Fantasy X2. So glad to have that. And I believe Zag said for the next care package he's making for me, he actually has an X2 strategy guide that he's going to be sending. So that'll be nice. You know, I don't get a lot of time to play RPGs. My wife bought me Xenoblade Chronicles X for Christmas, and I've kind of been working on that back and forth. I was really hardcore working on it for a while, and I'm probably nowhere near a fourth of the way through the story campaign, just because you can sink so much time into that game with just battling, grinding, leveling up, and side missions and stuff like that. So going into a game like this will be nice because I'll have a strategy guide. But one of the cool things is it came with a memory card, and I love that these memory cards have the little, the sort of thumb deal where you pull it out of the system and you put your thumb on there and pop it out. So it's Magic Gate by Nyko, and so that's pretty cool. But nice to find that complete and with the memory card. And finally on the PS2 front, this now completes my Final Fantasy VII collection, Dirge of Cerberus. So I've got the original Final Fantasy VII, or at least a Green Label Greatest Hits copy. I have the Advent Children movie on DVD. I have Crisis Core on PSP, and now Dirge of Cerberus. So I officially have at least one version of all media of Final Fantasy VII. A couple 360 games as well. Got GTA episodes from Liberty City. I believe I've got the Liberty City on PSP as well, but when I looked at this, it's cool because it's the Platinum Hits, so it's the sort of see-through or translucent gray case. What I really liked about this is the disc is in really good shape. It looks like it's barely used. And it also came with both the manual and the map and poster. The poster on this one being, of course, with this sort of patchwork design on the front of these games. This poster being the looks like a clubbing young lady, or a young lady out clubbing. And then on the other side, of course, is the map. And again, this is in pristine condition. So I was really glad to find this, especially at a pawn shop price. That's always awesome to stumble across those when they're complete. And the other game I found is Bully Scholarship Edition. I have the PS2 version of this and was going to play it for an RF Generation monthly playthrough. Once again, rfgeneration.com. Here a couple months ago, but I got busy and I didn't have time. And so it's still sitting out on my PS2, actually, waiting for me to play it. But I may elect to play this version just because of the improved graphics. And it says there are 8 new missions, 4 new classes, 4 new characters, 2-player minigames, new rewards, and achievements. I don't care about achievements, but yeah, this is, by all accounts, this is a fun game and a bit of a departure from the usual stuff from Rockstar, so we'll check that out. And the crown jewel of my finds yesterday For those that don't know, I'm a big shoot 'em up or shmup fan. Love scrolling shooter games and have been a fan of that genre since I was a kid. And so I picked up another yesterday for the Super NES that I've kind of been on the lookout for a while. This was a very clean copy, one minor flaw, and I thought it was a decent price. Shooter games tend to hold their value more because it's a niche market, and there are a number of us out there collecting specifically shooter games, so they're a bit more in demand than some other genres. And that is Thunder Spirits for the Super NES. Thunder Spirits is a home console conversion of Thunder Force AC, or Thunder Force Arcade, which was an arcade sort of redo or port, if you will, of Thunder Force 3 for the Sega Genesis. It's not as good as Thunder Force 3, which I already have, but it's a little different. It's supposedly a little bit easier, which will be nice because I can maybe ease myself into the Thunder Force 3 experience a bit more. I find Thunder Force 3 to be harder and a little bit more frustrating. I grew up playing Lightning Force, aka Thunder Force 4, and I love that game. I think it's the best shooter on the Genesis, bar none. And yes, better than Musha, Alesta, or Musha, and yes, better than Gyarus and Eliminate Down and Glay Lancer and all of those. But Thunder Force 3 is very good by comparison, a close second, if you will, to its successor. But some of the spots in the game are frustrating. When the power-ups show up sometimes, you got just a tiny window to get them because you'll have a power-up ship that'll come into the screen and it'll be crawling along the floor on a stage, for example, and then there's a hole in the floor, and if you don't get it before it's halfway across the screen, it falls to the floor, and then you lose your chance to get the power-up. Whereas in Thunder Force 4, they improved that, where even though the screen goes up and down to where you can move in many stages, and the play field is actually much taller than the height of the screen, generally speaking, if you're panning back or up and down across the playfield, you're going to see the power-up ship, and unless you're swarmed with enemies, you should have a chance to shoot it and at least activate the power-up. You know, if you have a hard time grabbing it, that's a different story, but at least you have a fighting chance to get to the power-up and receive it. In Thunder Force 3, I've always felt like some of those power-ups, they're just sort of placed kind of cheaply, and they make it much more difficult to grab those. So that's always been one of my frustrations with that game. But Thunder Spirits, I'm definitely going to pop that in at some point and put a little time into it, see if maybe I can kind of get a little bit of a groove with this, and then I can take that experience and then go back to Thunder Force 3 and hopefully kind of ease my way into that a little bit more. So very glad to finally have a copy of Thunder Spirits for the Super NES. One minor flaw, it's got just a little ding on the label there that you can see. But otherwise, the label itself is clean and isn't gross with sticker residue or you know, spilled food, as you sometimes see on games from this era. So that's all I've got for you today. Again, I'm not sure when I'll do another pickups video. Things have been busy. I'm going to be busy again with work and other stuff coming up in the next few weeks. So I'm not sure how much time I'll have to hunt. And also, since the PS2 and Xbox games that I've always been picking up at the local pawn shop have kind of dried up recently, it'll probably be more slim pickings. But as I get new stuff, I'll try to make a video, and I'll try to do one a little sooner next time so I don't end up with a 30-minute plus video like I have here. But thanks for watching, and as always, thanks for playing, and game on.